Hey everybody, let's talk a little bit about freedom. What is freedom? Why do we want it? What is the responsibility that comes with freedom? Are you free? Is freedom a feeling, or is freedom something you do? Because when you say you want freedom, when you have that feeling of desire for freedom, you're really just saying there's a feeling you're searching for. But that's not freedom. That's a feeling. Now you might argue, well, when you have freedom, certain feelings come with that. It's not necessarily true though, because when you exercise freedom within something, you may not feel good about it initially, even short-term, medium-term, even perhaps relatively long-term. But at the end of the day, the feeling is not the indicator of whether what you're doing is a free action or not. So what do I mean by freedom? Because I've grown up in America. I live in America, right? The United States, and we are impulsed, indoctrinated, brainwashed, whatever you want to call it, that we live in the freest country in the world. And that may be true, that we do. But it's kind of like relative to what? Relative to a dictatorship, a totalitarian place, which would be terrible to live in. But there's like a point of settling, and it's like if you're impulsed with that idea, then you'll have a feeling about freedom, and you won't actually, when you're required to do something that is more the responsibility side of freedom and not just the feeling side, you kind of won't even notice that you should do something, because it's like, well, I'm already free and I'm just looking for a feeling, so I don't have a responsibility here, right? And people search for freedom in all kinds of ways. They search for it in their relationships. They search for it in entertainment, activities. They're searching for that. They're looking for that feeling. But what is freedom in terms of responsibility? Because that's really more important than the feeling. If you were to look around at the world and you were to look at who would you describe as not free? Let's just look at the current world situation. And it's interesting because for a long time we've been saying this, and we're not the originators of these concepts or these ideas, but we've been saying it because we saw it, which was, most of the world lives in poverty, limitation, not what you would call freedom. And eventually, because we're not solving that problem, eventually it will come for everybody else. And even those who are in the first world, or are kind of like, hey, I'm good, it's just the way things are, eventually your freedom will be taken away. And now you're seeing that in places like Australia, Canada. I mean, it's already the case in China. Now you see that model being exported. See, I've got a bunch of guineas here. A bunch of guineas and chickens. And my Pyrenees dog is periodically chasing them into their little coop. That's what that noise is. But they're free to run around. Right? Except at night when we put them away. Why? Because there are foxes. And there are other animals that would like to eat them. But you have like countries like Australia. It's getting really insane. The lockdowns and it's like basically like a militarized sort of totalitarian situation. And I'm not exaggerating. Just go look into it. Don't watch the news. They're not going to tell you. It's so funny when people talk about the news. Like, well, it's like people get information from the news, and then they repeat it like they fucking understand something. And it's like all that happened was you watched a commercial for something. Somebody has a certain idea they want you to buy. You watched a commercial for it, and now you're accepting it. You're accepting it like as if they were there to tell you the truth. That's ultimate brainwashing, that you don't even see that that's what's happening. People have been trained for most of their life to think like slaves, and then to believe that they're not slaves, to believe that they're free. But then when actual in-your-face slavery shit is going on, you're like, whatever. I mean, my slave masters didn't tell me that that anything was going on, so I don't know what you're talking about. So when I look at this point of freedom, we're increasingly getting to a point where those of you who actually value freedom are going to experience that you're not free, are going to realize that you're not free. And you have two choices. You can either sit and you can complain and you can blame, or you can educate yourself and you can learn how to support other people to stand up and take responsibility. Because we're not any of us free unless all are free. If a child is not free to live and express themselves as their innocence within being effective within this world. So I'm not talking about like being a dumb, blissful idiot. I'm saying being innocent, not being spiteful, not being angry, not being fearful, not being evil, but being effective, understanding how things work. That is possible. That's what we're doing with our kids. And we're supporting others to do the same. But if you're not willing to stand up and support that, and support others, and to support yourself within that, the reality is you're not free. If you are holding on to this point of like, no, I have my opinions, I have my beliefs, I have my dreams, my ideas of what I want from life, and I'm not, those things are not in my control. See, like, you're not free. It's, if you say that, well, God is in control of that, or the universe is sorting it out, you're not free. You're actually a slave. It's literally the argument that a slave who is afraid of freedom that they would make, because freedom is a responsibility. It's actions. It's living. It's the way in which you live is freedom. It's not the feeling you get. The thing is, you can be sold. Let me rephrase that. You can be impulsed with images and symbols within which, when you see those, or when those come into your presence or in your perceptual field, whatever, you'll have certain feelings activated. And if you define that word freedom as those feelings, you will believe that you are free, because you're getting certain feelings which you have programmed yourself, whether on purpose or through just abdication of responsibility towards it, or not questioning it and not changing it. You've programmed yourself to lie to yourself. You've programmed yourself to believe that you're free based on feelings when you're not. Freedom is not a feeling. Freedom is not, oh, I'm having such a great time, I'm so free. Freedom is the ability to act without constraint. Now, we live in a world where there are going to be certain limitations, and you can't change those. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying you're not free because you have to eat. I mean, that's true to a certain degree. From the perspective of, it can't just go all day without eating, all year, without eating anything, without taking a dump, without peeing, like, you will die. So in that sense, you're not free. Nothing you can do about that right now. You have to work within those limitations. But now consider that there's people in this world who don't even have access to proper sanitation, proper nutrition, clean water. So they're not even free within those physical limitations, definitions that we have in our world. They're not even free to work within that. So they're not even free in that context. So while you're busy worried about your freedom in the context of like what shows you can watch or what kind of food you can have, they're like not even free on the basic stuff. I spent some time recently at a little cocktail party, and then I was invited to dinner afterwards with this relatively high level, I won't say secret society because it's not a secret, but it's kind of like that. It's a very limited group, and the past 3 Texas governors all were a part of it. One of our U.S. senators from Texas was a part of it. Anyways, I got invited to dinner after the little cocktail party. I met some of the people there. They invited me to dinner. And it was interesting because, I kind of talked about this on the most recent podcast, but for those of you who haven't listened to it, like, it was interesting because we were all chatting at dinner, and I was just explaining how we went to Florida recently, and our kids, we didn't take them to Disney, and they were kind of like, really? And then they were all sharing, when they went to Disney, or, the time they took their kids, and like, I could just see, like, they didn't even see that there was a problem with that, like, that they are literally brainwashing their kids, their grandkids, whatever. And these are high level people, like very well connected people, and like, they don't even realize that they're brainwashed to brainwash their kids, and while also complaining about the brainwashing that's being done on people. It's like imagine complaining that Disney is brainwashing kids to be transgender or LGBT or whatever, but then taking your kids to a Disney park or letting your kids watch Star Wars or some bullshit, not realizing that they're being impulsed with an allegiance to that brand, and they will follow that brand to the ends of the earth. And that's what people are doing. Whether they make you wear masks or make you take the sheep's milk or whatever, people will just follow it. And that's what the current 1% are banking on, is that people will just follow based on their feelings, whether it's a positive feeling or a negative feeling. People want to avoid negative and they want to chase positive. What if you reversed it? Now, I'm not saying you avoid feeling positive, but what if you like literally didn't chase it? What if you were just like, let the good feelings come, that's fine, who cares? And I'm going to go towards the negatives. I'm going to go towards the things that I fear, the things that I feel limited within. Like standing up in this world, and I'm not saying you have to go straight to like running for president tomorrow. Start with yourself, start with your relationships. Look at where you are not living based on principle. Start where you're look at where you're not free to do what is best in your current interpersonal relationships. Start there. Even with your relationship with yourself. Like, let's say you're addicted to pornography, or you're addicted to drinking alcohol or drugs or something. Do you realize, like, because you're chasing certain feelings or avoiding certain feelings, you're not free? And so look at those points and write all that down. All the things you fear about why you do those things. Like, let's say you're addicted to smoking pot, right? Write down all the reasons why, if you quit right now and you never touched it again, why that would be a bad thing for you, right? Like, well, I just like doing it. And I mean, it could be the positives, like, it's fun, and like, I don't like, imagine, okay, I'm gonna throw it away, whatever you have, throw it away, never touch it again. What do you immediately go into in terms of negative, positive, so forth, right? And write all that down. That's a good place to start with. Also, check out Mitchell Snyder's video he did on word webs and how to create a better, I think it's word webs and how to create a better world, or something like that. It's one of his most recent videos on his channel, around the same time I'm releasing this one. It's a really good video because you can take that stuff you wrote down and then use what he's showing you in that video. And whether it's whatever it is that you come up with, he can show you some cool things to do with that information that'll support you. And really look at, like, let's say you're building a business and you don't want to talk to people, you don't want to go generate leads, whatever. Why? What's your fear? If you were to focus for 8 hours today on doing that, or 4 hours, or whatever you can do, and you just did that, what would be all the fears that come up? Like, start looking at that, because that's where you're not free. And what happens is people will focus on one particular little area that they feel like they have control over, like their health or fitness or something like that, and they'll overly obsessively focus on that, like they're looking for that feeling of freedom within that, and they find the new diet or the new thing or the new running style or whatever it is, and then they'll focus on that and they'll get obsessed with that, but they don't realize they just bought into something. And now, I'm not saying there can't be benefit in those things, but if you're spending a year of your life or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years of your life obsessively focusing on that, and you're not standing up in all the other areas of your life to support yourself, to stand up in the system, to take responsibility for changing the system so that those who can't even get the basics can get the basics with no strings attached. You're going to see more and more, I think they're going to start it in Australia, introducing basic income, social credit on the Chinese model. I watched a it was like a clip from a news program in Australia, a mainstream news program, and they were talking about this guy who was sick, and the police were hunting him down because he was walking around when he wasn't supposed to be, going places he wasn't supposed to be, apparently, according to their laws. And the newscaster kept saying, you know, there are harsh penalties for those who just aren't willing to do the right thing. And she kept saying, those who aren't willing to do the right thing. And it's like they're morphing it, if you watch, from this health medical thing into morality. So it's starting to extend into that, and you'll see that. It'll be about climate also, will probably be next. And then it'll be about, you know, basically being a good citizen and needing to be able to track people. They've already got the contact tracing that's being accepted. And so it's going to expand into basically social credit based on the rules that you must follow to be a good person. And that's where it's going. And so if you think that, I mean, think about it. Like, there will be no area in your life where you will be free. You will never be able to get that good feeling of freedom that you're looking for. So how can you get that feeling regardless of those circumstances? Because there are a lot of things that are happening as consequence you can't control. Stand up. Start walking your process within awareness. Start doing DIP, Destiny I process. Start using TechnoTutor. Join Self-Perfected. Go look it up on Facebook, Self-Perfected, self-perfected.com, and you can find the Facebook group. Go into these points and start applying yourself, because we will support you to understand how do you actually stand up in this world as a self-leader, as a transitional leader, and change the systems. Because if we don't have people in politics making policies that are best, then you can see, just go look at Australia, look what's happening there. That's what happens when you have people with no real principles. They will use fear. They will use people's desire for freedom against them, because now they're saying, oh, if you can't leave your home because we can't trust anybody. So, oh, get the vaccine, get this app, get this thing, we'll track you, we'll trace you, we'll give you social credit, and then those people will be allowed to go out. So people's desire for freedom will be used to have them accept a bunch of limitation. And you'll have to go along with it because you won't have a choice. You say, well, I'm going to resist all this stuff. Okay. I mean, you can't. What you're seeing is the consequence of people just trying to resist changing the system. So stop resisting, meaning don't focus on that. Focus on standing up within yourself, within your community, and go further. Join Self-Perfected. That's the most important thing you can do today, is go join Self-Perfected. Because when you go in there, you'll see these people are actually standing up and they can support you. It's like growing up with brothers and sisters who actually care about you and having equals. It's not about leaders, it's not about following anybody. It's about becoming a self-leader. And you'll see everybody in that group, you know, they're in all different parts of their own process within that, but that's the starting point. So if people are in there who aren't doing it, they leave, they get kicked out, you know, and it's not being kicked out based on following rules or not. It's just like, you're here to be spiteful or abused or get attention. You're not really here to support each other, to give as you want to receive, and to apply yourself, right? So we are strict in the sense of, it's like, I have these guineas running around, right? I don't let a fox go in the hen house, right? But I let the guineas out. So if you come into Self-Perfected and you're a fox, it'll be obvious. The reality is we don't usually have to kick people out or block people because they just don't fit in. And let me address this point, because I guarantee in many people there's this fear coming up of like, oh, you're trying to like control what people say and do. It's about everyone have a common unified purpose. And that's the one thing that these governments and these communists and all these kind of people have, is a unified purpose. It's just not best. But if you want to do what's best, you have to have a unified purpose. Hey, Sin. You want to say hi?
Hi.
What are you doing?
Doing chicken.
Guess what?
What?
Chicken butt. I'm looking at your shirt. Looking at your shirt. It says guess what on it.
Chicken butt.
Yeah. You see Cody?
Yeah.
He keeps running around and telling those chickens to go in their coop. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Look, he's in there.
Yeah, he is in there.
Why?
He likes to be in there.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe he just likes to be in there and check on the chickens. It's his instinct to protect them.
Why do you protect the chickens?
That's what he does.
Hey,
It's part of his programming.
how are you protecting the chickens?
I know, isn't that cool?
You know what we're gonna do today?
What?
We're gonna buy turkeys.
You're gonna buy turkeys?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you see the text I sent you?
No. Are you actually buying turkeys?
I got
Yeah.
some.
Oh, Katie got some turkeys. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Little baby turkeys?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, you want to say bye to the video?
Bye.